Hi, welcome to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Thanks for joining the conversation. It's the Mimi and Greg Show. I've really missed my dear friend and amazing writer of all things. Due to my intense legislative session and its aftermath, my schedule has been very, very unpredictable. Throw in the time zone challenges and it equals a way overdue chat with Mr. Greg Rucka. As a member of the Writers Guild of America, Greg shares his opinions and insight on the strike. We also dive into politics and discuss the national perception of my AAPI history bill. Per our usual style, we also throw in some random topics like day drinking. I'd love to see some comments on this show, so please leave them in the blog post. For those that don't already know, Greg Rucka is a New York Times best-selling author of hundreds of comics and nearly 24 novels. He is also the writer for his critically acclaimed and award-winning film, The Old Guard, starring Charlize Theron. I'm loving these conversations and hope you are too. If you are, please rate my podcast on your platform of choice and share it with others. If you would like to support with a donation to help keep this podcast going and support the work I do, you can become a patron of the show by visiting my website or patreon.com/SifuMimiChan. Now, on with the show.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, Mimi. How are you today?
My goodness. It's been way too long and it's my fault this time. Yay, my fault.
we do not, this is not a forum where we need to ascribe blame to one or the other. There are plenty of other people we can ascribe blame to for far greater sins. So.
I am with you there, and I think we probably will do that in a bit. But
I'm sure. Undoubtedly, we will. Yes.
I do want to say today's like my general therapy day because normally we talk on Thursdays, and today's Tuesday. And Oscar's like, "Oh, okay, you've got therapy." I was like, "He goes, what's after that?" I'm like, "Greg." He goes, "Oh, therapy and Greg. What a great day for you." And I was like, "Why, yes, it is." You know, and I even made myself like a mimosa to celebrate, which is completely like, oh, I made this thing. It required dry white wine or champagne, and I had to buy orange juice for it to go with it, so I didn't throw away the bottle. So,
why not?
Yeah. So why not?
How's the weather?
The weather?
Yeah.
It's hot.
Yeah, because we're hitting 90 today here in Portland.
Okay. So you're doing Florida empathy in Portland.
Yeah. So without the humidity.
True. But that concerns me because I recall there was a crazy heat thing.
Oh yeah, no. 2 years ago, we got heat domed and it got over 116 Fahrenheit here. Right,
but you all are not infrastructured for that type of weather the way Florida does. It would be like Florida
aren't.
-50 degrees or something. And everybody here just melted, dying.
we had infrastructure damage.
Yes.
We had buildings and roads failing because of the heat. Yeah.
Is there a danger of that happening imminently, or is it just like a hot day?
It's just a hot day today. I mean, is there a danger of it happening imminently? Yes, it's called climate change.
That's a thing? Climate change?
Yeah.
Oh, so sorry. Being from Florida, we have to remind ourselves of all the real things in the world.
Right. Because you do live in fiction. And oddly enough, it's not Disney. So
Disney is the only thing holding it together here.
I gotta tell you, talk about black as white, night as day. When Disneyland, when not even Disneyland, when the Walt Disney Company,
yes,
is the shining knight, you know, whose skirts you have to hide behind, and this is no referendum on the product at all. Right. This is simply on the corporate structure and the joke that. You know, the sheer tonnage of attorneys that they employ. I mean, they are a monolithic power, right? Yes. You know, and when anytime we're looking for a corporation to save us, it's bad news. Yeah. It's bad news, you know.
Yeah. And I am so looking at Disney to save us, literally, like here in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never cheered for the mouse so hard in my life. Seriously. Like this last year has been pretty insane, really.
I know. Like I said, black is white, up is down, night is day. Yeah. It is the end stage of everything that we have been going to, really. It's sort of like, if you think about it, it's like, yeah, of course. It's just another big brick in the wall. So,
I know. It's funny because you and I,
we started our conversations in the pandemic, and at that time, you and I thought that would be the darkest of times and the worst of,
isn't it amazing how like, it's like one great big round robin of assholes saying, hold my beer, I mean, it's literally like watching, it's just, you gotta laugh because otherwise all you would do is you'd never stop crying. Yeah.
Yes, we have to laugh. That's the thing. That's why I said, wow, I'm looking at our episode count, because I actually do the thing now where I still open my show notes and all I do is I change Greg Rucka number, and then
what are we in the 60s?
No, we're at 54 because we had a minute these last like 6 months.
Well, Rome and Rome took the wind out. I mean, we lost the better part of a year. So
yes, Rome, and so, but 60 is pretty close, and so. I just kind of opened the thing. I'm like, oh, what am I going to talk to Greg about today, Oscar? He goes, oh, I'm not really concerned about it all. I'm sure you guys will figure it out.
We'll come up with something. Yeah, you'll just start talking.
But just thinking about it, though, we started this conversation. Well, we started before pandemic, of course, in your home, which we'll be frequenting again soon, hopefully at the end of the year. So
in September. Yeah,
yes, in September, and we'll
get to see you guys.
We really would have come full circle, and then I followed up. Let's
that should be 60. Again. If that one's not 60. It should be. We should be over 60 by that point.
Yes, exactly. Oh yeah. I think so, because we're looking at summer now, and you won't be going to Rome. And
as far as I know, I'm not going anywhere.
You're not going anywhere. Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, I can't. I'm struck. So, like my next trip is my next trip is going to be down to LA in the next couple of weeks to put in some time on a picket.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
The one thing that the strike has done in being in Portland is that, I'm fairly limited. I don't have a social media presence.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can offer the financial help I can to the relief fund. And I am more than happy to sign up for anything that they send my way.
Right.
But I'm in Portland. There's no place in Portland to picket. Mm-hmm. Like me marching up and down out in front of the ABC affiliate doesn't really.
Not the same impact.
No. Now, I would be more than happy to go and picket a production in Portland.
Right.
But I am unaware of any productions in Portland. So, and the other thing I'm doing is I'm like cutting all, somewhat painfully for the kids, but it's like, you know what? We're cutting the cable. We're cutting all of these things. We're killing our subscriptions because I cannot in good conscience. I can't in good conscience be paying into these companies while at the same time they're going to be going, no, we're not going to pay you. And it's like, well, then you know what? I have plenty of books. I have plenty of DVDs. And there are some services that I can access that are not going to feed into these corporate. You know what? All of these are always marked explicit, so they are not going to put coins into these corporate motherfuckers' purses. Dropout TV, which we have. We have something like 3 separate subscriptions to Dropout in the house.
Yeah.
Right. Like we could just have one, but Dashiell's got one and Jen did one and then I did one. So we've got like, you know what? There's more than enough content there to keep us occupied. We'll be fine.
Nice. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that is, you're the real deal there, sir. So
no, I'm just, you know what it is? It is the flip side of the I am powerless, I can't do anything that we are all made to feel is that you absolutely can. It doesn't have to be huge things. Like, all I'm doing is a drop in the bucket. But if there are 10 million drops in the bucket, that's a flood. It comes down absolutely to one, the willingness to do it, right? To go, you know what, this will inconvenience me. Yes, it will inconvenience me not to have access to all of these things on Disney Plus or whatnot. It will. That's one, right? Is that a sincere, real thing to be able to, does that matter so much in my life? Now, for some people, it matters to them that they have access to every Star Wars thing and every Marvel thing. And you can see it on the Discord. There are people who literally fall over themselves for whatever is being put out. Okay. If you cannot go without it, that's your choice, right?
Right.
But that is a decision you can make, and it is a small one. And that goes to, and this really isn't me trying to throw rose petals, because I frankly have been in a foul temper the last 2 days. I'm just in a funk. But so much of what is happening in the world is happening because of either legitimate disenfranchisement of our voices or perceived disenfranchisement, right? The difference between the legitimate, you actually don't have power here, it has been stripped from you, i.e. the Supreme fucking court, right?
Yeah.
That has absolutely been stripped. There is they are not, the court is no longer representative of the country. Yeah. It isn't. It just isn't. So that's a legitimate disenfranchisement. The illegitimate disenfranchisement is the part that then goes on and says, and therefore anything you say or do has no merit whatsoever. And it's not true. Right. But convincing us that it is true keeps us from our advocacy. And this takes us all the way back to pre-pandemic conversations and you passing legislation. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know what? Telling Comcast they can go screw themselves and take their modem back and so on, and I'll find somebody else. And all drop down to, 900 gigabytes gigabytes per second or whatnot instead of 1,000 that they never gave me anyway. Right. It's like,
right.
I can take that hit. You know what I mean? That's a small thing. That isn't a big deal. The way they stop you from doing that is saying it won't make a difference.
Right.
And it will make a difference, and it makes a difference because the second you call up Comcast Xfinity and you say I'm canceling, they say, well, we have these other offers. Would you like a different package? We can give you a better deal. Number one, you should have been giving me a better deal to begin with. And number two,
it always makes you so mad.
A better deal is actually proper compensation for writers. So you can pass that on up the chain. And when people ask, why are you canceling? It's because I stand with the WGA. That's not to say everybody now must rush out and cancel their services to stand with the WGA.
That's your choice. Yes. And of course, because you're directly part of the WGA too, you have a different sense of responsibility.
Yeah, and that's precisely it, right? Everybody, we all navigate the world on the basis of, and every day we have to make a compromise, I take my refillable mug when I go for my walk in the morning to the coffee place, right? That's a small token step. Mm-hmm. But they do add up.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe, and actually, I don't even need to say you don't need to believe it. I'm talking to evidence that it does. All right. Like, regardless of the stuff that you've had to navigate since its passage.
Yeah.
That doesn't diminish the achievement of the passage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
I appreciate that. Yes. So. It's tough, and for listeners that are like, what's happening? I'll be very honest. It's actually, and I get it. If I didn't live in Orlando, I wasn't in Florida, I didn't go to Tallahassee for these last couple years, and I wasn't the one doing it. And I was sitting in a very safe blue state where we're just looking down on all the shit that's happening in Florida and all the horrible bills. And then you kind of see, hey, this one bill passed. It must be a mistake. It must be some government ploy. It must be some, governor move that, why would an AAPI history bill pass when they're taking away facets of other education?
When not only that, when they're saying you literally cannot now talk about these things in education.
Exactly. And then
but this got through somehow.
And this got through somehow. Yeah. Totally understand the optics of this because I feel like I would also be very judgy and just shocked that it could happen suspicious. If I didn't know. Suspicious, yes.
Yeah, certainly suspicious of anything that DeSantis signs that looks like it's a good thing.
Exactly. You're like, nope, that can't be. There's got to be something going on. And I get that. The issue that I personally have been having is actually everyone in Florida is super psyched because they know we've been working on it, because we let them know we've been working on it. We've done outreach over the last 2 years. All of the AAPI orgs and many of the LGBTQ and African-American, Hispanic orgs, they know already because we're here in Florida. Outside of Florida, they don't really know that this was happening. And now they just saw this thing happen. And then so they freaked out. But instead of just taking, like everything else, 10 minutes to just look a little, because we got local coverage news on who was doing this. They took 10 minutes to look into it. They would have seen, this group called Make Us Visible Florida is doing this, and they've been advocating for it. Let's call them and ask them, hey, what happened? Or any of these national orgs, I'll straight up say they're national AAPI orgs, could have called their affiliate branches here in Florida and said, have you heard of this? What happened? Instead, they just went on like NBC and all these other national outlets and just like spoke really badly that this was horrible. It's meant to divide, communities. It specifically was signed to drive a wedge. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I had to do a lot of damage control because I don't think people realize like, no, this is actually a grassroots thing that we did this. And you actually helped me with that narrative when I had talked to you about, oh, am I going to have to stand up there while he signs the bill? And is there going to be a ceremony? Honestly, he didn't even invite us because I don't think he knows he signed this until these orgs actually brought it to his attention. Yeah, because there was no bill signing. He didn't announce it. There are all these pictures of him signing a bill with 7 big educational bills that passed, some of them horrible, some of them good, some of them, and we got really lucky. We were able to save our bill and put it on an omnibus that was not toxic. Like the stars and the work we did couldn't have aligned better. Like it all aligned where we got on something we were comfortable with as well. And so I get why nationally people looked at it and was like, what the hell is happening? But then talk to us, have a conversation before you kind of keep going and just badgering just for your national optics is the way I see it. And I get it. It's scary. You don't want communities to be torn apart. But I was like, every Black legislator and every caucus member and leaders in the community were for this and with us. So who do you want us to be on board with? They're happy about this, so we were very intentional and careful. And so it's been a struggle because then it's putting out fires individually. Like we couldn't just put out a statement and have people believe us. We've had to have individual conversations with every single place that's confused. And some of them have, I'll be honest, not wanted to have those conversations. So that's even harder.
They don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. We have and like so many, look, I mean, it's, it's one of the, I don't know if it's genuinely a product of the era. I do know it's much easier to resist conversation in 2023 than it was 20 years ago, right? Yeah. And much easier to get into your own echo chamber, so you're only hearing what you want to hear.
Yeah,
it takes a different effort now, but changing somebody's mind, and I speak for myself, it's not an easy thing, right? You have to be willing to, one, admit that you don't know everything, that you may be mistaken, that your assumptions are assumptions. And culturally in particular, and you see this a lot on the right, is there's just nobody's ever wrong there, right? Like, I mean, that's the strength of Hissy Fitler, is he is never wrong about anything.
Yeah.
Right. There's never an apology. There's never a mind that needs to be changed. There's never doubt. Right. And that is really, I mean, that's what you want if you're looking for an authoritarian leader. Right. That's textbook fascism, and as we have discussed in the past, there has been a concerted effort to erode critical thinking, certainly in this country, and a concerted effort now going on for over 40 years, at least, if not 50. And it's so funny. I mean, whoever came up with the game plan was actually fairly clever to go, like, look, the American sort of psyche is, I go my own way and I do my own thing. I make my own decision. I'm independent, right? We're all about independence, wars of independence, revolutionary wars were fought. And to have somehow convinced so many people that believing what they're told is the same as independent thinking is really a hell of a magic trick. Like that was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
That took some doing. That really took some doing, because that's the thing. I remember I've run into this over and over again, right? The right wing counterpoint is, you guys are brainwashed. I'm the one who sees things clearly. And it's like, dude, all you're doing is literally repeating what Fox News has told you. That's not thinking, right? Right. That's dictation.
Yeah.
And yet this manifest belief, right, that I have come to these conclusions by myself. I have examined them critically. It's like, no, you haven't.
And
that's where the difficulty comes when you try to change a mind, because if I am right, then I am not entertaining any room for me to believe maybe there's something more I could learn here. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Maybe I don't see the whole picture. Maybe I don't know everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I just don't know how we're in a space, and I don't really want to spend a ton of time talking about Hissy Fitler, as you say, but like, how can
that's not mine. That's Troutman's, I think, but it's
be like the top candidate, like, how can
I mean, but to me that makes perfect sense, right? Because it's the exact same things as before. He is the story. He's getting all the press. You saw the thing about the Atlantic piece on CNN. So it's very clear now that all of what's driving HBO Discovery, like Zaslav's reporting to a libertarian, quote, libertarian right-wing billionaire who's another Trumpist. So is it shocking at all that the whole apparatus has turned to support that? No. Who's got the greatest name recognition? Who's the biggest show in town? Right? Trump is still getting headlines. And he's going to get headlines because everybody stares and goes, more than half of the people looking go, Jesus Christ, when is this dumpster fire going to stop?
Yeah.
Right. But there is that very loud minority that is just in love with shit stirring.
Yes.
A lot of what got us Biden-Harris, I think, is less Biden-Harris. And I don't think Biden's done a stellar job, but I certainly don't think he's done a bad one.
Right.
But I think
especially
a lot of what,
like the Congress, you got to work with what you have, and when you don't have much, it's.
But I think so many people clearly were just like, I don't want this car crash anymore.
Yeah.
And there were people who voted for Trump because he was gonna mix it up and
drain the swamp.
They didn't. Well, no, they didn't vote for him because they actually believed he would drain the swamp. Yeah. They voted for him because they were like, he's different and he'll blow shit up. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still a really long way out, and I'm not taking any bets.
Yeah.
Mind you. But I'm also, frankly, it sickens me because literally if he does get elected again, we're done. The country's done. And I don't think that's hyperbole. I mean, there was a piece in the Washington Post 2 days ago about like think tanks basically saying like that's going to be the end of like the authoritarian autocracy that will come from another Trump administration.
Yeah,
will basically be irreversible damage. There are only a couple ways you can move forward in the face of that, even if you don't believe it, right? Even if you don't really believe it's going to be that bad, there's still only a couple ways to move forward, right? And that's going to be, as we get closer and closer to the election, knowing if not who you're voting for, knowing who you're voting against.
Right. And then, the Florida guy is just worse or the same, or he's dangerous. That's for sure.
He's more dangerous because he's the same, better dressed, and more empowered, and either better coached or smarter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I think DeSantis is far, far more dangerous threat. But you look at everybody who's just entered the field. I mean, fucking hell. Pence is running. Is he high? Does he think he has a snowball's chance in hell?
I don't know why anyone would run. Apparently, it's like really expensive. It just ages you. It's just horrible. It's a horrible thing. I don't know why.
I know why Trump's doing it. Right.
Yes.
I mean, Trump's doing it not only because he feels entitled and he totally clearly, like, the only thing that gets him hard is power. Mm-hmm. Right. But he's also doing it because he's terrified and it's the only way he can stop the jaws that are closing around him.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like, if Pence thinks he has a snowball's chance in hell, like, talk about a guy that nobody in the party likes. Right. Like, the Trump supporters hate him. Right. The rest of the GOP is like, hello, I mean, look, you call your wife mother, I mean, you know what I mean? It's just, if you think you're getting traction on this, like there was a photo of him like on a motorcycle with the it's like, I don't for a second believe that. Like Bush the second on an aircraft carrier with a flight jacket saying mission accomplished is more believable than you in a biker jacket, dude.
I really dread this whole campaign season.
Oh God, yeah.
It is just the worst thing ever.
It is so ugly. I just hate it.
Gross. I hate it so much. We're gonna have to like brainstorm a bunch of other topics during this entire next year.
What? I think we should do something with puppets.
Yeah.
Like we should just do, we should get like a Greg puppet and a Mimi puppet. And we should do one of these where it's just the puppets talking to each other. Okay. I think we should do that.
It'll be our own Avenue Q.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure we can find somebody who would write us songs.
I'm sure. Yeah. Putting it out there, everybody who wants to write us. I think we had already gotten a little.
We'll do a musical episode.
Yeah. Then they'll be like, and they have completely lost it. Everyone. Have completely lost it.
Well,
I already talked about mimosas earlier.
Exactly.
And, we'll just be like,
that's what we should. That's the other one. We should do an evening one where we just get drunk.
Yeah, like drunk history. What is it?
Yeah, called? Exactly. Or a day drinking one. That we should do that.
I want to know why day drinking is so frowned upon when you can go to brunch at 10 a.m. and order mimosas and bellinis, and that's cool and okay. Yeah. But if you have a drink at 1, people are like, "Oh, you're day drinking."
I know why it doesn't work for me. It means like I'm shot for the rest of that. I will just go down. I've discovered at my ripe old age of 53 now that I'll go to a Timbers game and I'll get the standard overpriced beer, and if I finish the beer in the first half, unless it is an exceptionally exciting game, I will nod off for a couple minutes in the second. And that's sitting in the stadium. Right? I am.
Oh wow! Yeah,
I gotta get more sleep or something.
I'm a little bit the same. Like my whole thing earlier was very out of character, and it was more of like not wanting to be wasteful and frugal about it. I'm like, I will not waste this, and for some reason, I just wouldn't want a mimosa at night. I don't know why. It's the orange juice or something, and I don't ever have orange juice in my house. Like this is just crazy.
A mimosa is definitionally a morning drink.
Right?
Right. Like a Bloody Mary straddles the divide, but you don't go to brunch and ask for a martini.
Right. Right. I guess you could, but that.
No, there's nothing stopping you. I've never heard somebody do it.
Yeah. So, yeah. Well, the OJ makes it very breakfasty.
You realize this is going to be out of 55 episodes now. This is going to be the thing that's going to get the most comments. Like people will be like, I don't know, for breakfast I like to have, for brunch I'll have a
the day drinking episode. We'll
exactly.
I mean, if you could only understand what the last 4 months of my life has been like, you would think I would be drinking every hour. I mean, I had to be in Tallahassee, people. Tallahassee. Oh, this is a cute day drinking story. So, my friend and I, who was my huge pal in this, went up to Tallahassee every time. We're like, oh, we're usually there on a Tuesday because we come in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is generally when the committee hearings are. Because heaven forbid legislators work Monday, Friday.
Right.
Those are travel days, and then then we run out of time in legislations for some reason. I don't know why. It was so frustrating, but. So there's
At least they showed up.
Yeah, there's this one Tuesday, and we went to a restaurant, and they're like, it's all day happy hour because it's a Louisiana Fat Tuesday theme. And we're like, wow, this place is amazing. And then we read the menu, and it's like their happy hour starts at 1 and ends at 8. So it wasn't really a big stretch for all day happy
But they opened at 11, right? We're just doing it 2 hours early.
So I was kind of like, oh, well, I mean, I guess Tallahassee needs to have all day happy hours. It's just
I was going to say it does say something about the it explains a little bit about the way legislation works.
Yeah.
Ironically, the other thing I was thinking is you hear people say drain the swamp, and all I could think is, isn't Tallahassee?
It's not. It will be the swamp. It will be the swamp, but because it's kind of panhandly, right? But it's swamp. Typically, we were Evergladesy, but it's just frustrating though because it's not near anything. It's super inconvenient, and it's just There's no good food. So beyond the whole stress of legislation, it's not even like a fun place to be. It's intentional. They said that they wouldn't move it to Orlando because it's too fun. And there's like a sign that says it will be moved. It will never be moved or something. They tried, but they'll never move us. So
yeah,
I'll be happy if I never have to go back. But I have
Yeah, you inevitably will someday.
I don't know. This has taken a lot out of me. Like,
look, I got to tell you, there again, I don't know what it was I saw this past week. Yet another piece of stunning, legislation in Florida, and I had another moment of like, God, when are they getting out of there? And I. That is, let me put it this way. That is not a good or helpful thing for people to say, right? Like and I have come to recognize this, like to my friends in like Texas and so on.
Yeah.
Because what at least I'm actually saying is that sucks. I wish you were some place that didn't feel so, where you weren't feeling under attack, under assault, right? What I'm really saying is not abandon it. I'm saying I want better for you.
I know that.
Well, but it's important to articulate that because it is. I'm looking at myself. I'm going. I have to stop saying that. Right. I have to stop saying to friends, God, you got to get out of there. They know when the time will come to leave, one hopes.
Yeah.
And it is an attempt to say, I am in pain for you. I am empathizing, right? You know what I mean?
I do. I never take it that way. But you're right. It's like I feel like I'm constantly apologizing on the behalf of the whole state when it's not. Like he doesn't represent the people and he doesn't represent anyone here. And I will actually say
gerrymandering. Say the words. Yes.
Gerrymandering. And it's true. It's gerrymandering. And I will go one step further, which is a little dangerous because I still have to work with the government here in order to get things done. But like, there are a lot of people, Democrats, Republicans, that are very, very unhappy with the way legislation went this year, even though they voted counter to what they're saying. I was like, well, get some guts and stand up and be a part of it. But at the same time, when you're in a place where there's punitive measures taken against your constituents that you said you would do certain things for, and you have no power to if you don't do X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. I do see and understand the conundrum of it's not that simple to just say, F off, I'm just going to not vote for any of the things that has become the governor's priority. But I actually can see there is weight on a lot of these humans, which I did and was able to find a way to work with. I mean, my bill was unanimously supported.
Yeah.
That's kind of an amazing thing in a state like Florida to be able to speak to everyone and have us all agree on one thing. And there were a lot of things this session people don't know about because we don't ever talk about positive things. That was good for African American history. There's like a check and balance now, the way that Holocaust studies has that check and balance. Now that does. The Hispanic heritage or Hispanic studies doesn't yet, and AAPI doesn't, but like eventually. But if we have no law to start with, we have nothing to build on, right? And so they take away some, we put some back. They take, it's a constant struggle. But I will say, people here are pissed, and that's including the legislation. Mm-hmm. Like they did not enjoy that Mickey Mouse fight because it took so much time away from work that was supposed to be done. They are not happy about it. Like even the people that are supposed to be, supporters,
are backing the play.
But the thing is, I saw firsthand more than I ever want to, but it also gave me, dare I say, a bit of this very scary thing called hope, because you realize, no, these are humans and they are not happy with their hands tied doing what they have to do sometimes. And I get it. It's easy for us to just point and be like, it doesn't matter if it's wrong. But then if you're not elected,
you see this a lot. You see this a lot. You see it on the Discord. You see it in general discourse, right? Which is that we don't, and we now as a collective, right? Just everybody. Yeah. There are a lot of reasons that we are not willing to engage in complexity and nuance. There are a lot of reasons. Like we could spend hours talking about all the barriers to it.
Yeah.
The danger is, it's one thing to say, oh, this is all bad, right? Okay, fine. It's another thing to then believe that, like one is I am disengaging at this point, right? I don't want to get into the intricacies and subtleties and nuances. So I'm just throwing I'm basically saying I'm done with it, right? For now, I am done with it. There is nothing to discuss. The danger then becomes adopting that as actually cancel culture. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I don't want any of it, and anything that comes from it is bad and horrible. I hate the way Netflix is running their stuff and the way they handle things, right? They put out The Old Guard, and I am very grateful for that, right? I have to be able to engage in some nuance there,
Right. Yeah.
Just as a personal example, I can look at things that, say, DC or Marvel do and go, I wish they didn't.
Yeah.
Right. It goes to, we are asked as citizens, as human beings now, to do a hell of a lot of work on a daily basis simply to get through the day, to have any consideration of what's going on around us, right? It is so much easier, and we have so much more energy if we just turn it off or reach our conclusion and then stop. And again, there you can list a whole ton of factors as to why that is the case. We have to engage. And we've talked about this in the past too. There's only so much energy you can put forth at any given time.
Yes.
But you can't therefore also divorce entirely and preserve the energy. Because otherwise we're literally going to wake up one morning and discover, oh, the whole thing's gone. Right. Like I said, I've been having, I didn't have a great day yesterday. I woke up, I was in a real foul temper. And it was one of those days where and we all have them, right? It was one of those days where like all of the little things got onto the back of the camel, and the camel was like, I'm not moving. Like that you heard the backup crack, and I've got a long list, right? And a lot of it is existential. A lot of it was, reading the news.
Yeah.
And it was one of those mornings where I was just like, this is just an endless fire hose of, bad news. That was Monday. Tuesday, I get to talk to you.
I know. Well, like I said, today is the best day so far this week for sure.
I mean, and, it gets better. So
it gets better. It gets better.
So,
Yeah.
We get up and we keep going because really the other option is not viable. So
it's true. And that's why I kind of like teased at the beginning of this episode, like, yeah, you and I started in the pandemic and we thought, oh man, this is some crazy times. And I was like, we all were safe in our own homes in the pandemic. And I mean, there was some really bad things. Don't get me wrong.
The social breakdown notwithstanding, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it was some bad stuff. But I just like, it's kind of like exhaustive, right? And you're right. Texas, Florida, there's so much always going on. But I think, and this is something that I have tried to then.
Oregon, the whole thing here with literally the Republicans being like, well, we won't do it then.
Right.
Like,
well,
what the hell do you mean you're not going to literally? We won't do our jobs because we are the minority party.
Well, they also found a leader that showed them to act that way and that it would be acceptable. Right. And so this is the problem. But, part of like the last couple weeks of conversation I've had are like two things can be true at once.
Yes.
This can be good. I'm using my example, AABI history bill can be good. And it can also be bad that they have taken away this book or that they have decided that this AP course isn't there or that they are restrictive on how things like both can be true and exist.
Yeah.
It's not, this is not some zero game, right? Like, it's
exactly.
Like,
it's not binary.
No, I'm like, we are also not taking away things because this is being added in. Like, this is not a trade-off, right? Like, and I think it was just very much trying to remind people that we can still advocate for certain things and be upset about things and then be in a space where, like your Netflix example, where you can not like how certain things happen, yet still tell people to watch your film. There's nothing wrong with that.
We don't need to, you can't be a publisher. This was a huge Dan DiDio problem at DC. For a very long time. He got better towards the end of his run, but if he didn't like a book, the book wouldn't happen. Mm-hmm. Right? Like if he didn't like an idea, and it's like you can't run something that big and say, I am the only taste to be answered to. I am the only desire to be answered to. You can't do that. In the same way that you cannot govern a country this big and go, oh, I am the only person who arbitrates these things. You can't. It's too big.
Yeah.
You have to sit there and go like, I'm not down with that, but there are enough people who want that. Right, that I have to weigh I have to weigh its merits and its detriments and then make the decision on that, regardless of where I personally stand on it. And on some things, where you personally stand on it has to be an absolute. There needs, there are certain moral absolutes. Slavery is bad as a moral absolute.
Yeah.
Right? That is not open to debate.
Right.
Right. And you can get into arguments as to what slavery has done, quote, beneficially, end quote. Right. But you cannot argue that morally it is right. Right. You can't do it. Mm-hmm. That's not open to debate. Mm-hmm. We say this all the time, but, politics used to be the art of compromise. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And now, compromise is the dirtiest word in the world.
Yeah.
And well, if that's true, then that's the end of every relationship you're ever going to have. That's the end of your marriage and mine. Right. That's the end of my relationship with my adult children. Mm-hmm. Right. That's the end of my relationship in traffic. Literally driving is endless compromise.
Yeah. No
right.
Kidding.
Is it not? Am I going to let this guy into the lane? No, really? That's the hill you're going to die on, quite literally.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, literally. Like this is going to kill us, like you said. This can be a big deal. But I know we have to wrap up soon. But I will say, like, how long do you think? Because I remember the last writer strike, and believe
this is going to last a while longer, I think.
Yeah, and SAG-AFTRA just approved authorization for strike
94 or like
97.91%, because I get the emails and like we approved that, and that's yes.
It's interesting because the first data I saw yesterday said that like the vote was only something like 49% of membership, which I can understand because you guys are huge. I mean, you guys
and also you don't really know what's happening. You just keep getting phone calls and emails. You're like, what's going on? Oh, we got to go on and do this. Yeah, you got to.
But the authorization vote was overwhelming.
Yes.
So now the question is going to become really what you guys can get in your contract negotiations and where those compromises will lie, because there are places in the WGA, like I've looked at, I know our bargaining points very well. I've been keeping up, right?
Yeah, I'm sure.
There are certain things that I'm like, they cannot move on certain points here. There are certain points they absolutely can move on, that they will be willing to move on. And I see that, right? I was disappointed, but absolutely not surprised to see that the WGA immediately turned around and said, well, we've got a deal. Let's send it out for ratification. I don't know if it has been ratified yet, but I'm not at all surprised. I think that if SAG-AFTRA does strike at the end of June, we will move more promptly towards a resolution of the strikes across the board.
Yeah.
If they don't, WGA is not going to cave. Any deal goes through the WGA there, because you can you can blow your horn all you want about unscripted content and reality television and so on. And you can talk all you like about the fact that you can get this stuff on YouTube or TikTok and so on. You know what? People want long form story. People want to be able, at the end of the day, not to sit there and watch 2.5 hours of TikTok, but to be able to watch 2 episodes of Fill in the Blank or watch The Mother, right, on Netflix, or they want to watch Ted Lasso or fill it in. So and I think that there are larger issues here. I think that we are now in an environment. We know they want to destroy the guilds. They want non-union labor.
Yeah,
that's what they want.
I see.
Right? Because what they want is profit.
Right. It's always an imbalance of power too. Like the people making the most, and they think, movie people make so much. I was like, oh my gosh.
No,
I mean,
absolutely
especially
not.
Writers. It's just like,
it's
so
appalling.
Ridiculous.
I mean, it's appalling if you think about the fact that there are writers on hit shows who only, were told to do all this in 10 weeks, spend the other 42 weeks of the year trying to get work and are unable to do it, and we're not paid for that 10 weeks or the success. Like literally are now going, okay, I worked on super successful show, and now I am back to bagging groceries. Right? That's not a career path.
Right.
Right. And so I don't see a quick resolution here. And I think we're going to know a lot more by the end of this month.
Yeah.
As to the lay of the land. But when this started, I felt like it was going to go until the fall anyway.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I remember the last time and I was like, oh boy.
Well, and these aren't the same strikes. These are very different strikes.
I just meant like the time, like, this is okay, this is crazy.
It's going to stretch.
Yeah.
You know,
it's definitely going to stretch. So, yeah, I've talked to a few people about it that are in Writers Guild, and then my friend Perry in New York, he's like, I'm going out. I got to go out. I'm going to a rally after this to stand with the WGA. I'm like, you're so awesome. He always goes to do those things, and you're just like, yeah, I think this is. I think it's a good thing, and people don't understand the nature of how imbalanced who's making the most profit and how imbalanced the workload is.
But I think it's very easy to explain. Like, you can explain it this way very easily, right? You can say to somebody, look, the people who created Captain America, one of them went most of his life without getting anything for it. And only after court cases, right? The guys who created Superman, right, ended up impoverished, right? And had to take DC Comics to court to get the money they were owed. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
Was it right that they had to wait so long to get a share? Just a share,
right,
of what they created? And if somebody can look you in the eye and say, well, yeah, that was on them, they shouldn't have signed that contract, right? Then the response is that, one, you don't know how contracts work. And two, you don't know what power is. And if you genuinely think it's fair, then there's no argument to be made, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's the same thing as saying, if you and I are both working as bricklayers with the exact same level of experience, right, and the exact same number of years in, and you get paid, $3 an hour more than I do on the exact same job doing the exact same things, that's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
That's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is about what is fair. And literally, Apple, there was an Apple Day of Action yesterday. Bad Apple. I don't know if you saw any of the material out there. This is, the Apple had their developers conference, and put this up on the Discord. I was going to try to bring up the email, and then I was like, you know what? It'd be faster if I can get it up on Discord. But I think this is significant. Like, this is noteworthy. Hold on, let me bring you. For some reason, when doing this, I lost the camera. There you are.
The mighty Discord, everyone.
Mighty Discord. This is the mighty Lazarus Discord. Yeah, film and television. I put the quote in. This was just, for Apple, the cost of the WGA proposals is just $17 million per year. Last year, Apple reported almost $400 billion in revenue. The cost of settling is reasonable, so what is Apple waiting for?
Mm-hmm.
$17 million. $17 million. That's the ask. It's going to cost you $17 million to do this. You have $400 billion. Yeah. In revenue, you made $400 billion is what you reported.
Right. It's
it's appalling.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it comes down entirely to the fact, and it's a cliche, but it's true. Writers are so badly treated. Like, I've been treated really badly in comics, both by DC and Marvel. Like, I have been treated contemptuously badly by the big two at times.
Yeah.
I have never, even compared to that, Hollywood laps them in contempt and disrespect for what I do.
Wow. Which is really insane, because we'll just have to have the next episode on the whole thing about like every show that sucks. It's because you can tell the writing isn't, like it's usually like, hello,
I was watching
shows are really good. It's because the writers are really good. And then you start from there. Like if you don't have a good writer, then
I have gotten really,
you don't even
really
have a chance.
I've gotten really, really good at watching things and going, that was a studio note. That was a studio note. That was a studio note. Okay. That was a studio note.
Yeah, they love putting their mark. They have to put their mark in it, or they seem irrelevant, right?
Yeah. You can start to smell it after a while.
I'm not as good at detecting them, but I do understand why and the whole thing. I've been in that.
It's like learning to detect ADR. When you're watching something, you're like, oh, that was ADR. That was additional dialogue.
Oh my gosh. Let's hope that it all goes our way, and that, this holdout is going to work out. And, I think, it was time, and hopefully the renegotiations will be effective, because things have changed. I mean, especially with media, like, oh my gosh. Things have to change, it just has to change. So we'll see. And then we'll see what SAG-AFTRA does. I mean, I'm a member, but I'm not a working member. It's not like I'm working
at
all
the
time.
moment.
At the moment, that's right. There's an option. There's a chance, the opportunity is there.
I mean, you and I could have a completely different discussion about just, your need to protect yourself from technological exploitation, right?
Yeah.
Look at what you did for Mulan.
Oh, right.
Seriously, that data is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? In 30 years, are they gonna be using effectively your body and your movement?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's your right to that?
I mean, I don't even get residuals on Mulan. So.
Yeah. So
did not, 16-year-old me was not very, I was just excited to be a part of something. Right. So
sure. But like I said, it opens up some interesting
It does.
Issues,
it does. It really does. Yes. No, you're right. You're so right. So, all right, we'll leave it there since now we've reopened
We'll talk again in another couple weeks, I hope.
Yes, definitely. Now I am back on track, and the summer is not as crazy. I'm not going to Tallahassee or any of that. So we should be good. I'm so happy to see you. I miss you so much.
I'm so glad to see you.
And we'll talk off air about September and things like that as it gets closer to. So
the Big Rose City event.
Big Rose City event that we will be doing something at. I don't know what, but it'll be something.
Excellent.
All right. Until next time, sir.
My best to everybody.
Likewise. Bye. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at Sifu Mimi Chan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.